Died. I'm Lisa Lacera. Joe Lieberman, who represented Connecticut until his retirement in 2013, has died suddenly.
Joe Lieberman's family says he died in New York from complications after a fall. He was 82 years old. Lieberman entered the Senate in 1989, defeating Republican Lowell Weicker. Lieberman ran as Al Gore's vice presidential candidate during the disputed election of 2000.
Fox's Chad Pergram. Lieberman also ran for president in 2004, but dropped out after a poor showing. In 2008, after breaking with the Democratic Party, he was on the short list to become Republican John McCain's running mate. Most recently, he was working with the group No Labels and putting together a unity ticket for the upcoming election. Lieberman's family says his funeral will be held Friday at a synagogue in his hometown of Stamford, Connecticut. The bodies of 2 of the 6 construction workers that have been missing since the collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore have been recovered.
This is not a conclusion. It's a continuation. And we take this phase just as seriously and just as personally as we took the last phase.
Governor Wes Moore, the bodies of the 35 and 26-year-old men were found by divers inside a pickup truck, submerged in about 25 feet of water near the middle span of the bridge. The Maryland State Police says the victims are from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. 4 people are dead, 5 hurt in a series of stabbings in northern Illinois. Rockford Police Chief Carla Red says a suspect's in custody and is being questioned, and they don't believe there are any other suspects at large. A motive for the stabbing is not yet known. Florida and Disney have reached a settlement in a state court battle over how Walt Disney World has developed in the future after the takeover of the park's government by the state. America is listening to Fox News.
'93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
What happens next? I'm Harrison Silcox. Here's what's trending this hour. On Wednesday, Transportation Secretary and former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg discussed what his agency is focusing on next and the cleanup of the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore.
Reopen the port, deal with the supply chain implications until the port does reopen, rebuild the bridge, and deal with the surface transportation implications until the bridge is rebuilt.
He says emergency responders got there fast enough and limited the damage from being worse than what it could have been. Your safety is a top priority for the state during the April 8th solar eclipse.
I'm Donnie Burgess. Governor Holcomb signs an executive order Wednesday allowing Indiana to tap into the emergency resources of other states during the solar eclipse. Thousands of visitors are expected in Indiana, which is why the governor is working ahead of time to make sure state responders are ready in case there's a major emergency. Donnie Burgess, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
The Plainfield Police Department says they have a new 4-legged crime fighter.
And her name is Newt. I'm Sean Herrick. She's a boxer mix who was a victim of animal cruelty in the past. Her previous owner has been convicted on several criminal charges. After she was rescued, she was trained to be both a gun detection and therapy dog. Now she's certified to do both. You can see pictures of Newt at WIBC.com. Sean Herrick, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
On the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com. Now here's the forecast from the American Standard Heating Weather Center.
Low temperature will drop to 30 degrees by our Thursday morning, then rise up to maybe not quite 60, but close to it later on Thursday afternoon under mostly sunny conditions. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Drew Narsutis for 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel here, inviting you to join us as we kick off the weekend every Friday around 5:45 with Beer Sample Friday, brought to you by our friends at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
Why? Why take a chance? Why risk a mistake? Why say something? We all have reasons why we choose to ignore the things that give us pause, that seem out of place, that don't feel right. The word why can either paralyze us or empower us to stand up and protect what we love. So if you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my family.
I see safe for my friends.
I see say for my students.
We see say for each other.
I see say because all of this matters.
We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies this community we're all a part of. So protect your everyday. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
Over the last few years, things have gotten weird.
And for our kids, these things can be overwhelmingly stressful.
Scientific research
and real-life experience
tell us that the number one antidote to stress is authentic, trusted relationships.
So that's why I
am committed to building and maintaining a trusted space.
This is a trusted space.
Access free films and resources to build trusted spaces in your schools and communities at atrustedspace.org.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Indy Humane. Find your new best friend today. Visit indyhumane.org.
Tony Katz.
It's Kendall and Casey. The Amber and Nigel show.
All right, well, when does your show start? Do we know? I feel like I've been promoting this for 9 years now.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC. That's 93.1 FM out of Indianapolis. The live streams on Twitter, X, and YouTube, as well as the podcasts everywhere else. It's March 27th, and it is a very serious time for the United States indeed, because the consequences of Biden's border policies, and I want to make that clear, these are owned explicitly by President Joseph R. Biden, who on the very day that he took office in January, rescinded 86 of Donald Trump's border and immigration policies, and then proceeded to pass 226 immigration policies via Congress or executive order over the next couple of years of his administration. Now we are looking at disease. We are looking at rampant crime that ranges from the sexual assault of children and the mentally ill and disabled to the open murder of Americans who are out doing their own business, not even in what are considered traditionally border states. If the media was looking for a bloodbath, not the one where, Donald Trump suggested that the automotive industry would encounter a bloodbath if China was allowed to continue sending cheap cars into the United States if he lost the election in November, but an actual bloodbath in which the blood of Americans is spilt at the hands of not pregnant women, migrants that are just coming across the border trying to find a better life, not just beautiful physicians and doctors' assistants and physicists and chemists from far off lands, but 20-something-year-old illegal immigrants from war-torn countries who already have convictions on rape and murder and gang activity, who were then caught momentarily in the United States and then released. Before we get to those, though, let's talk about some general effects. There is a measles outbreak in Chicago. And the measles outbreak in Chicago is not due to crunchy moms who don't trust vaccines. It's due to illegal immigrants at an illegal immigrant shelter in inner city Chicago. 30 plus cases at one site. Now, I haven't seen, the same news coverage about this as the less than 10 cases in Florida across the entire state last month. Neither have you. The news coverage whenever an illegal immigrant commits a crime suddenly disappears. We spent 4 or 5 months mourning for the loss of fentanyl woman beater George Floyd, and yet no one seems to want to cover the individuals who have been slaughtered, diseased, or raped at the hands of 20-something-year-old men coming from war-torn countries illegally, not via a port of entry. Now, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is refusing to the press, which is amazing as an elected official. You can just refuse to give information about governance. He is refusing to say how much migrants are costing the city of Chicago after the New York Post exposed a $1 million hotel bill for migrants. This is the same guy who's been preaching about how awful it is that individuals in Chicago can't afford homes, yet all of the available renting space is going to illegal migrants for his sanctuary city. How curious indeed. Can't wait for the FOIA requests to come up on those. And open the floodgates for crime after hideous crime caused by illegal immigrants, while Karine Jean-Pierre and other Democrat officials run around the entire country trying to tell you that actually more irregular citizens commit crimes. We are forced with crimes that never should have happened at all. Another as in more than one illegal immigrant has been accused of raping a mentally disabled person, this time in Alabama. This follows on the heels of a rape of a teenager in a Massachusetts migrant shelter, which just happened a week ago. This is when an illegal in his mid-20s was released into the country through Biden's parole program. So he was already a felon who was caught in the country, yet Biden has started this parole program for illegal immigrants. And he went to a Massachusetts migrant shelter and raped a disabled teenage girl. Massachusetts Governor Healey, of course, a Democrat, was asked about it. Here's what she had to say.
He asked Governor Healey if she can prevent this type of incident from happening again.
You know, unfortunately, we have security and systems in place. We have vetting in place. It is unfortunate that from time to time things will happen.
So sometimes things just happen, guys. I mean, sure, they could not be in the country in the first place. Sure, when you catch them, you could actually hold on to them, especially if they've committed some kind of a crime. Individuals who commit crimes, this is a funny thing, they tend to commit crimes again. The greatest indicator for a repeat offender is the first offense. Now just let them through one of Biden's parole programs. And heck, why not even pay people, incentivize the illegal immigration? That's what Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer is doing. She's proposing $500 a month for Michiganders to house illegal immigrants. And what do you know, here in Michigan, an illegal immigrant that was deported in 2020 returned to the United States and murdered a Michigan woman during a carjacking. The victim's name is Ruby Garcia. And of course, you're not seeing any kind of coverage about that except an article from The Hill saying that Republicans are using illegal immigrant crimes to ignite a race war. Now, I don't know if you've been able to tell from my opening monologue here during the Quick News Roundup on the Tony Kinnacast, I haven't mentioned the ethnicity of any individuals at all. Now, sure, I could go on and on and on about the numbers of migrants which are crossing the southern border, which are on the terror watch lists of Hezbollah, Iran, Somalia, and other places that Trump was castigated for referring to as S-hole countries, but we won't go into detail on that. Instead, we'll once again reference Laken Riley in Georgia, who was murdered by a caught and released illegal immigrant, or Lisbeth Medina, a teenager in Texas, who was murdered by an illegal immigrant. And they're not even just refraining to use the southern border crossings between ports of entry now. We actually have footage in California at Solana Beach of illegal immigrants showing up to the United States in boats and just hopping off the boat like it's Normandy and flooding right into the country. But as Virginia Allen from the Daily Signal told us from her time in San Diego just a couple of days ago, even when they're caught by Border Patrol, they just end up dropping them off at a transport center where left-leaning nonprofits then ferry them around the country. How absolutely wonderful. And you might say, well, these are just a few cases. Where do you get off laying all of this at the hand of the Biden administration? In the month of February, Immigration Customs Enforcement arrested 446 illegal immigrants who were accused, charged, or convicted of homicide, assaulting children, or, of course, being a sexual offender convicted of several different sexual crimes. 171 of these individuals were arrested for violence and homicide. 275 were arrested for sexual offenses. So 446 in February. ICE has not yet released the numbers for March because March isn't over. It is getting worse. The Biden administration refuses to shut the border. And as long as they continue to do so, Biden's hopes and chances of winning in November are lost. At this point, that doesn't even begin to be a concern for me. The loss of life between now and January, when the next president takes office, is unacceptable. And yet, Governor Abbott of Texas and Governor DeSantis of Florida are castigated because they want their states to uphold the law and arrest illegal immigrants who have already committed a crime by illegally entering the United States from committing additional crimes, like, again, the homicide, the assault of children, and the cases of rape, kidnapping, and other sexual assault, not to mention the squatting and murdering owners who come home to their houses to be murdered and stuffed in a trash bag like the two migrants did in New York. migrants, because, of course, God forbid you actually call the murder and the rape of children illegal. Well, up next, we're going to take a look into this kind of ideology that has created this series of Marxist actions as it was first fulminated in Europe and moving into Russia with the rise of the Empire of Terror. The Daily Wire's Bill Whittle joins us next. Stick around. This is the Tony Kinnacast here on 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
The cities have failed, become too difficult. Whether it be Chicago or San Francisco or New York or Indianapolis, they are connected by their progressive politics. And their progressive politics make things too difficult. It does not take a brain surgeon. It does not take any level of skill to note the connectivity. Just admit it.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Greetings from R&R Agency, your Indiana health insurance pros, and a sincere thank you to our loyal customers for helping make us national sales leaders for the 7th year in a row. We continue to save our new clients 30 to 40% when compared to their current ACA, short-term, COBRA, or small group programs. Breaking news. On July the 7th, President Biden signed an executive order outlawing short-term health plans. If you're on a short-term plan or just unhappy with your present coverage, call Terry or Ron at 317-563-0868 or go to rragency.org. That's 317-563-0868 or rragency.org. If you don't call us, we can't help you. Our coverages are guaranteed to age 65 with zero deductible and zero copay options, all on the largest network in the country. Give us a call. What the heck you got to lose? As always, God bless America, or at least what's left of her.
Your home is your sanctuary. Get the peace of mind you deserve with a free estimate on a Generac automatic standby generator for your home from Generator Supercenter, the nation's #1 Generac generator dealer. With expert installation and 24-hour monitoring, Generator Supercenter won't leave you in the dark. Financing is available. Take control of your power today with Generator Supercenter. Call 317-827-0808. Generator Supercenter of Indianapolis, 317-827-0808.
Inside Indiana Business Radio, the news you need to get ahead. Indiana's business news leader, weekdays at 6:32 a.m. and 5:56 p.m. on WIBC.
As a caring adult of a 7th or 8th grader, you may see their college plans as a distant process, but in reality, it'll be here in no time. Think about it. Your child could be heading to college by the time you pay off your next car. There's a good reason for middle schoolers and you to start planning their path to college today. This message is brought to you by the Indiana Youth Institute. Indiana's 21st Century Scholarship provides eligible students with up to 4 years of paid college tuition. So here's what you need to know. It is key that we make sure every eligible child is enrolled in the program. Requirements vary dependent upon age, and early sign-up is available for 7th grade students. For more information on the 21st Century Scholarship, visit learnmoreindiana.org/scholars. This Kids Count Minute is a message from the Indiana Youth Institute. For more parent tips, visit IYI.org.
Kids count on you.
We see it every day online, tragedy of some sort, and our kids see it too. This message is brought to you by the Indiana Youth Institute. Now more than ever, our youth need our support, even if they don't experience an event firsthand. Talking about what is going on can help them understand and feel safe. When talking to our youth about tragedy, use gentle words, offer comfort, and encourage them to share their worries. And remember, our youth could be experiencing fear, shock, anger, anxiety, and grief. These reactions are all normal, and their age will likely affect how they handle the stress. Be patient with support as your child grieves. However, if the child continues to display strong reaction for more than 2 to 4 weeks, they might need more help coping. This Kids Count Minute is a message from the Indiana Youth Institute. For more parent tips, go to IYI.org/kids.
Kids count on you.
Smokey the Bear. Then you know why Smokey tells you when he sees you passing through. Remember, please be careful, it's the least that you can do.
What you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire.
After 80 years of learning his wildfire prevention tips, Smokey Bear lives within us all. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com. And remember,
only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the whoops. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Through their service, veterans have our backs. Now we should have theirs. Learn more at gotyoursix.org.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Hey, welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC. I'm here with Bill Whittle. And look, there's a lot of people who the introduction just doesn't do him justice. This is one of those people, and you're going to find that out as the interview kind of progresses here. He's a writer and director of several excellent American and world history projects. And mostly, I guess, to the average person who may be from the Midwest, you might have heard of What We Saw. And it's a documentary about individuals that grew up during the space race and when Apollo 11 landed. And then the second season is about the Cold War and the tensions that really arose out of the Second World War and how the United States prevailed. And it's excellent for a lot of reasons. But why he's on today is to talk about the third season, which is dropping. And you guys have to hear about it because it's about the rise of the Soviet Union, which initially, I see you guys out there, you're kind of nodding along like you know the rise of the Soviet Union. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You don't. I don't. Because it's been a long time since 8th grade world history when your teacher glossed over it because it was the end of the year and you remember the names Stalin and Lenin. But Bill's going to help clean that up. Bill, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So the first question, this is one that I get a lot when I've talked to some friends about your series in general, is why do a Cold War and Russia history series in the first place? At a time when President Obama got on the world stage and argued that focusing on the Cold War is like a really 1980s political stance. It's like a very old idea, a very us versus them dichotomy. Why do a this is us thing in the first place?
Well, just to answer the most obvious part of that question is, President Obama in his infinite wisdom assumed that the Cold War is over, and why even study Russia? I mean, it's not like they could invade another country since the Cold War was over. It's not like Russian expansionism or militarism is an issue today in 2024. I mean, you can't possibly understand what Putin is doing in Ukraine without understanding Putin's background, and Putin's background specifically ties to one of the most remarkable stories in Empire of Terror and one of the most remarkable coincidences in history. So just to answer that specific question, Vladimir Lenin was the author of the Bolshevik Revolution. He invented communism as we understand it today, Leninism.
Right.
He was a very reclusive guy, needless to say, very antisocial guy. And so when he moved into a small house outside of Moscow, he had a residence with his wife, his sister. He had 4 bodyguards, 2 secretaries, and a cook. And this cook was named Comrade Spiridon. That was his last name. So Spiridon was the only guy who actually lived with Lenin. He lived in the house and cooked every meal for him. And after Lenin died, it was decided that Spiridon could be trusted because he hadn't poisoned Lenin. So Comrade Spiridon went and lived with Stalin for the duration of Stalin's run as dictator of the Soviet Union. So you got to figure that of all of the people that ever lived in the Soviet Union, this one cook was the guy who was he had the best ringside seat to the rise of the Soviet Union from this agrarian wasteland into this nuclear superpower. Now, Comrade Spiridon's last name was Putin. And Comrade Spiridon Putin, the cook for Lenin and Stalin, the only guy who lived in the house with both of those two men, was Vladimir Putin's grandfather. Now, Spiridon Putin died when Vladimir Putin was 16. But you've got to think about what kind of stories young Vladimir must have heard on the knee of his grandfather talking about the Soviet Union.
And it must have been effective because then Putin goes on to become a KGB agent in Dresden, of all places.
He enlists before he's old enough. They tell him, come back in a year or two, so he does. And as the Soviet Union is falling apart, he's stationed in East Germany, in Berlin. There's a great movie called The Lives of Others where you learn about the German secret police called the Stasi, which is the same as the KGB and the Gestapo. They're all built out of the same materials. Right. But the fact that Vladimir Putin's grandfather was Lenin's personal live-at-home cook and Stalin's personal live-at-home cook. Now, this, you may think, oh, wow, I guess that means he really has a great view of the Soviet Union. But what that really means is that all of the people that Stalin murdered over the course of his life, and Lenin too, for that matter, sat at the table and were served by Spirit and Putin until they suddenly disappeared. Here's Yezhov over at the house having dinner, drinking till 4 o'clock in the morning. The next day, where's Comrade Yezhov? Well, Comrade Yezhov isn't with us anymore. Now, he was shot in the back of the head. Now we have Comrade Beria. And then Comrade Beria is there for 20 years. Where's Comrade Beria? Oh, Comrade Beria is not with us anymore. He was shot in the back of the head. And those are 2 examples out of hundreds. And so if you have a cook who's grown up worshiping a man whose modus operandi, talking about Stalin here specifically, for dealing with problems is to have those people killed. Mm-hmm. And then that man is the father of Vladimir Putin. What kind of values do you suppose are going to end up in Vladimir Putin's head when it comes to problems?
And that's the linchpin. That, to me, at least from my very limited understanding, has to be one of the key focal points. And again, I haven't seen the script for the show. You're telling me things that I've never known before. I had no idea who
I didn't either.
Putin's parents or grandparents were. But again, a lot of people have asked, why is Putin so fetishistically obsessed with this authoritarian government? It was communism then, it's some kind of pseudo-fascism now. Why has Putin grown into this way? Doesn't he hate the Soviet Union, at least in its oppression, after his lineage? Well, no, because not suffering under communism, his parents and grandparents were under the kid gloves of communism. Like, that in and of itself is the kind of post-historical fact you genuinely don't hear about until usually hundreds of years later.
It's like if we're talking about Christianity, then it would be like Vladimir Putin was raised by Peter, by Christ's greatest disciple, that knew Christ the greatest. You would wonder, well, how come this guy's a Christian? Well, why do you think? Why do you think he thinks like a communist secret policeman? He became head of the FSB. One of the things that we do in the first episode of An Empire of Terror, and I was very clear about this, I wanted this to be a legal case against communism. I wanted it to be a legal case against them. And that meant that my opening statement to the jury had to be a punch in the gut. And so the first chapter of the first episode is called A Modern City, where we get on Google Earth and we just walk around Moscow and we look at buildings that are standing today. Here's the Lubyanka. We're not sure how many, but probably 70,000 people were murdered in the basement of this building. Hey, let's go 2/5 of a mile up a street. See that gate there? This gate belongs to a little courtyard that's still owned by the FSB. If you go behind that gate, you'll find a little courtyard where 14,000 people were shot to death in night, screaming while the engines on the automobiles were revving to silence the sound of the gunfire. Oh, I know. Let's not go north. Let's go south. Here's a building that's about to be turned into a modern perfume store. It's just a regular, typical retail outlet. The Russians at the time called it the shooting house. 36,700 people went into that building, and 36,700 people didn't come out. That's one building that is 0.2 of a mile away from the Lubyanka, which is 300 yards away from the toy store in modern Moscow. So the whole first chapter of the first episode is showing you where the bodies are, because I wanted to come into this thing with the receipts, Tony. I wanted the receipts on the table, and for me to make this case stick, it was critical throughout the entire run of it that I never gave anything that was an opinion. So I didn't want people to say, oh, this just is some right-wing guy's opinion. No, this is what Lenin said. This is what Stalin said. This is what Trotsky said.
That is exactly how I write. That is my exact definitive philosophy in doing the show and working for the Daily Signal and doing my writing. I'm very forensic. Because the last thing that I want, again, if there is one thing that my editors will criticize me about, it's that my articles, whenever I write, are filled to the brim with hyperlinks. Because as a former science academic, exactly, there is no opinion of mine unless I openly state this is my analysis of it, that is not based in direct linking fact to what is going on. It's why Indianapolis Public Schools, it took so long to fire me after I exposed critical race theory. I had everything cited down to a T.
Yeah.
And so
problematic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're on with Bill Whittle talking about the new season of what we saw, the rise of the terror of the Soviet Union. And
it's called an empire of terror.
An empire of terror. And when it comes to this empire of terror, and when it comes to the horrors that you're getting ready to dig into as this comes out, a lot of people, again, when I was in school in the aughts, all right, and then when I taught students in the teens, Stalin was really the only focus of our instruction on USSR, right? And then if we even discussed it at all, maybe a little bit of Lenin and Marx, and then it's social studies, right? It's not really history, it's social studies. So we would shift to talking about like modern propaganda, and we would like, again, shift from the actual history. Why cover the terror and those surrounding Stalin in such a greater detail in an empire of terror? You said the first episode is a case against communism, but the series goes on after that.
The whole series is a case against communism. All 8 episodes are a legal case against communism. And when I make my closing arguments, I don't think there's a rational person on the earth who could possibly defend the system. I have a line I like an awful lot in the very first episode. I said, now, if you're one of those people that are really determined to defend communism, the single most important thing you can do is understand as little about it as possible. And that's really the truth. Now, here's what really did surprise me, Tony. When I pitched this episode to Daily Wire, I thought I was going to do a 7-part series, one on each of the terror masters. Dzerzhinsky was the first head of the secret police. I would do Dzerzhinsky, Menzinsky, I'd do Yezhov, I'd do Yagoda, Beria, I'd drop off and Putin.
Oh, another episode on Beria. If you haven't listened to his second season here on What We Saw, it is the section on Beria genuinely made me believe in the ghosts he talks about for a few minutes. It's horrible.
It's horrific. But here's what genuinely surprised me, because sometimes when you start writing something, especially if it's just something factual, where you've got an idea of how you want to cover this, but then you start actually doing the research, and the research starts taking you in different directions than you originally thought. I thought that this was going to be almost exclusively about Stalin. I thought I'd be done with Lenin by the end of episode 2 and maybe halfway through the episode 2. I didn't finish with Lenin until the end of episode 6. It's hardly about Stalin at all. And the reason is because this is not Stalin's creation. It's Lenin's creation. Mm-hmm. Lenin wrote the manual and Stalin followed the instructions. Now, the reason that's important is that the defenders of communism would like to say that Lenin had created this workers' paradise, died early of a stroke, and this monster Stalin came in and ruined everything. Well, this is the argument that, well, they just didn't do it right. Look what communism did in the Soviet Union, killed 20 million people. Yeah, well, they didn't do it right. And my point is, they didn't do it right. And they didn't do it the wrong way. They didn't do it the right way. They did it the only way. Mm-hmm. Lenin created a state where the only person who could succeed him would be the most ruthless murderer in the bunch. That was the only candidate available.
To catch the rest of this interview with Bill Whittle, and arguably one of the best that we've ever done, you're going to have to head over to your favorite podcast service, search The Tony Kinnacast, and that'll be waiting there for you. We'll be right back in a second. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to The Tony Kinnacast here on 93 WIBC.
What people suffering from nasal breathing, snoring, and sleep apnea problems want is for their issues to be fixed. And at Advent, that is precisely what we do. Here, there are no Band-Aids, but there is a thorough approach to get to the root of your problem. And in tens of thousands of cases, finding simple solutions, which are undeniably effective, have made remarkably positive impacts on people's lives. I'm Dr. Madan Kandula. For years, patients have been traveling literally from around the world to come to us to find what no one else has been able to give them. And that's why now we've come closer to you.
If your quality of life has been diminished because of nasal breathing, snoring, or sleep apnea problems, and you don't know who to turn to, go to adventknows.com to schedule your appointment, because Advent knows when you breathe well, you live better.
Breathe well with simple solutions. Breathe well with simple solutions. AdventKnows.com.
Results may vary.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Your bathroom is boring and basic too. It seems like there's nothing you can do. A better bath awaits. You'll feel brand new, relaxing in a world of peace at the Bath Authority.
Hey, it's Rob. Right now, schedule your free in-home estimate and get $1,000 off a new shower or bath, plus 36 months of interest-free financing. Restrictions apply. A better bath awaits.
You're our priority at the Bath Authority.
Did you know one of the best investments you can make? It's in yourself. At My Computer Career, in just a few months, you could start your new career in the high-demand, recession-resistant field of information technology. Isn't it time you invest in you and start a career in networking, cybersecurity, AI, or upskill to boost your current IT career? So, get the ROI you deserve at My Computer Career. No experience necessary. Start now at mycomputercareer.edu.
Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Marketing professionals tell me I have to run some big promotional gimmicks to get you to contact us. And, just mark up the selling price to cover it. Mark Rowland with Indie Decorative Concrete. Now, I only have an IPS education, but I'm confident my fellow Hoosiers see right through the disingenuous ads. That being said, in winter months, I'm most flexible on my pricing. So if you have a concrete project you want installed this year, don't wait. Schedule a free estimate today at indiedecorativeconcrete.com.
Reach your fitness goals in 2024 with the 20-minute once-a-week program at Exercise Inc. 5 locations now in Fishers. Visit exerciseinc.com.
Tune in Saturdays 9 to 1 for the Home and Garden Show for advice and fun. Brought to you by Michaelis. Water, storms, fire, and wet basements. Life happens. Michaelis happens to help you through it.
There are 48 million unpaid family caregivers in the United States. Visit aarp.org/caregiving to access a free guide to help navigate your caregiving journey.
The Phone Ready Quiz from the American Academy of Pediatrics will help you decide if you and your child are ready for their first phone. Go to healthychildren.org/phone ready quiz.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC. Stephen Kent is joining me, which can only mean we're about to talk about the best, and the worst, and all of the adjectives that you can think of when it comes to culture. We've got it right here on Whatcha, Watchin, Consumer Choice Center, Geeky Stoics. The man has just written an article about the new Star Wars Acolytes series trailer. He's got all the thoughts on it. Stephen, thanks for joining us, man.
Good to see you, Tony.
So this is one of the first trailers that's come out for Star Wars that I didn't even watch for a day or so because I'm so tired and exhausted with how much Mickey Mouse is desperately trying to milk the Star Wars franchise that I saw the first couple of comments about it before I watched the trailer. And I was like, oh boy. So first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about the trailer and then we'll dig in from there.
What to say about the trailer for Star Wars The Acolyte, a new series coming to Disney Plus this June. This is directed by Leslie Headland, who we can talk about here in a little bit, and is being heralded as the most diverse Star Wars property that has ever been put out. I guess it will eclipse somehow the Andor TV series and its commitment to diversity. But this trailer features basically it's just a new plot line for the Jedi Order. This takes place 100 years before Star Wars as we know it. Star Wars chronologically begins with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, the final days of the Republic before the Empire rises. This show is taking us back 100 years before that time point. So Obi-Wan Kenobi is not alive. Qui-Gon Jinn, not alive. Yoda is the only guy who would be alive at this time. Right. And it is showing us the Republic in what is called the High Republic era. It's opulent. It's successful. The Jedi are powerful and strong. And the Sith are supposedly extinct. until a mysterious killer appears in this trailer who is hunting and killing Jedi. And then there's a red lightsaber that appears at the end of the trailer. What is most remarkable about this, though, is that the entertainment press has picked up on it's the most diverse Star Wars that we've ever seen. And by that, they mean that there's no Caucasian males. There's no white men in the entire trailer and on the leading cast of this show, which, I guess I have questions about that in terms of what they define as diversity.
I mean, at least for me, that's actually the thing I care the least about. And I'm not trying to impress anyone when I say that. That one really doesn't bother me as much. I mean, the fact that they're pointing it out, if they just cast the show and didn't mention it and just said, we think this show is going to be great because it's got a great story. Haven't you ever wondered, the Jedi Council made a big deal about who this mysterious Sith-like person was. Wouldn't you like to see another time when they may have freaked out? I thought that would be a cool story. But they didn't do it. They're focusing on the diversity. That's not even my biggest gripe with it, though.
Yeah, and I think this is where I always feel boxed into taking a position that I don't like taking, because I think identitarianism, obsession with identity, and obsession with race and quotas is really, really bad. It's a toxic mindset for approaching any form of media. I also do not care about the casting choices of this show. But when you look at the PR, the discussion around the show is a triumph because of diversity. The show is a triumph because of its, inclusion of Black, brown, and transgender people in the casting. You go, okay.
And you and I both know that if anyone criticizes it from this point out, even if it's a sucky show, they're going to be like, well, you didn't like it because it was racially diverse.
You are
because
a
you're
racist.
A biggity bigot.
You're a bad racist and a bigot. Yeah, no, that's kind of what you got to look at here. And so I go, all right, so this is very interesting. So it's a interesting cast for this show. But we just came off of the Google Gemini AI controversy. So just to recap for everybody, Google rolled out their new AI image generation tool called Gemini, and it was so diverse and so DEI compliant, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that when you were trying to search for images generated of Vikings or Irish people or human beings who can't jump very high, you could not get images of white people. Google Gemini
show me a picture of George Washington crossing the Delaware, and it would look like Tyler Perry's crossing of the Delaware.
Shaquille O'Neal in the Revolutionary War. Yeah, that, and all the way down to depicting Nazis, German soldiers during 1939 as Black. So basically, Google Gemini took diversity as a principle and used that in such a way that it erased white people from its algorithm altogether. Diversity, according to DEI nuts, is the absence of white men. And so when you understand that that is what diversity means to these individuals, it's not surprising then that you watch the Star Wars Acolyte trailer and you go, oh, wow, it's so diverse. I can't help but notice there's something strange about this, which is I can't find a white guy anywhere. And you go, okay, so that's what we're doing here. Diversity doesn't mean an eclectic mix of individuals from different backgrounds. It actually just means we are going to completely erase the norm of that there is a majoritarian group in white men as being included in this group. So
regarding the Star Wars Acolyte trailer, just to kind of loop that back here and obviously reminiscent of Google's Gemini AI debacle, I want you to picture if there is a female director that is directing, that's going all in on the super duper diversity. I'm going to tell you one more thing before I show the picture of the director. There is the main theme of the show, it appears, is that Jedi are like colonizers of the Force and imperialists. And they've taken the Force because there's this girl and she's sitting there and she's in the beginning as a Padawan and she's like, I see fire. And then it's it's not about good. It's not about bad. It's about power, which is the left's entire lame, super just stupid point that they've tried to make so desperately over the last century. And so it's a kind of weird pseudo-Marxist power dynamic series that is about the strength of a black woman, which, by the way, I thought that's what like the Reva in Kenobi was about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I every time it's like, oh, this is the first person ever to be like this. Imagine, if you can, for me, this director. What does she look like? And we'll put her up on screen. That's right. If you guessed looked like every other progressive lady advocate out there, you would be right. What a surprise. But Stephen, isn't there a little more to this director than meets the eye?
Well, some not so deep diving internet sleuths have unveiled and made a very big point of the fact that Leslie Headland was the executive assistant and scheduler and assistant to one Harvey Weinstein. Which,
now, she claims that she doesn't know anything about all of the Predator stuff that he did. You know.
Yeah, the scheduler for all of his appointments and rendezvous with young actresses. Of course, she had nothing to do with it. Look, this is one of the things where there are like lexicons of ideas and conspiracy theories and ways of thinking where when you're, to the right, you have to adopt all sorts of different points of view that all connect to one another. And so when we're talking about Star Wars: The Acolyte and whether or not it's a good show, we have to also talk about the director and her previous job working for Harvey Weinstein. And also, I thought people to the right, conservatives and libertarians, didn't care about that entire plot line in general, unless the point is to highlight hypocrisy within Hollywood. Now
to be fair and to kind of wrap this one close, because I love to go on about this, but running a little bit short on time here. The real reason that I don't care for her is that she's never written anything Star Wars related before. She hasn't actually done any work within the Star Wars universe before. And she is already trouncing all kinds of lore that's been established in this new. Remember, they got rid of all the Legends stuff, and now they have this new canon. Claudia Gray made a very big deal of saying that like lightsaber fights were entirely ceremonial right before episode 1 begins, because there wasn't a whole lot of reason for lightsaber versus lightsaber combat because it hadn't been done for ages and there wasn't any sightings in it. And now we're completely writing it again. And this comes just no continuity.
Tony,
it's just garbage.
This is where you and I are going to have to get into the details, because I love talking about the lore and Star Wars itself rather than the weird politics behind the scenes. If this show indeed has some sort of Sith Lord or acolyte or assassin who is hunting and killing Jedi, then the Sith Lord, if he is to reveal himself, if Plagueis is still a he, we'll have to kill every single person who he comes in contact with. There has to be no survivors, which is a plausible explanation, because if the Sith are not to have ever been seen for millennia and not to have been known, then the only people who contact the Sith in this show must die before they can tell the tale, which could be really interesting.
I think you're right. We'll have to have you on maybe another time sooner rather than later, because we have to dig into it. It just frustrates me beyond all belief that we have to dig through another garbage series that's going to get overly political for no reason. Stephen Kent, Consumer Choice Center, as well as Geeky Stoics. Thanks for hopping on for What You Watchin', man.
Thanks, Tony.
You are listening to the Tony Kiddicast here on 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
Joe Biden speaks gibberish. Joe Biden has a hard time walking. He can't find his way off of a stage. Don't give me this crap that Joe Biden's cognitively all there and way superior to Donald Trump in that category. This stapler that we've got in the studio is completely more qualified to be running this country right now than Joe Biden.
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Spencer Thompson at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus. Stretch your tax dollars during our Buy More, Save More sale. The more you buy, the bigger the discounts, and it's all delivered for free within 75 miles of Columbus. Everything from Lazy Boy, Smith Brothers, Bassett, Sealy mattresses, every lift chair, it's all included with the lowest price guaranteed. Sale ends Monday only at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
Let Bill Estes put you behind the wheel of the powerhouse brands that define American toughness. Ford, Chevy, Ram, and GMC.
Right now, get up to $12,000 off a 2023 Ford F-150 XLT Super Crew 4x4.
Unleash the power of the road with Bill Estes Trucks. Find the location near you and see their inventory at BillEstesTrucks.com.
Offer includes trade assist from Ford. All rebates and incentives included in final discount. Stock number BFBL 230707. Raptor excluded from all offers. See dealer for details.
Garage door problems? Call today for service today. Garage Doors of Indianapolis services all makes of garage doors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call today for service today. 875-4577. Call today for service today. Get it fixed right now. Call Garage Doors of Indianapolis at 875-4577 or visit doorstoday.com.
In the morning, call 875-4577.
Service today?
Today.
My house has a new glow. I love my windows. Universal Windows Direct.
Hey, it's Rob. Right now, schedule your free in-home estimate, and for every 2 windows you buy, get the next 2 free. Plus, free upgrade to triple pane glass, and they'll double your energy tax credit. Restrictions apply. Like me, you'll be saying, I love my windows.
I love my windows. They've got that brand new home effect. Universal Windows Direct.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. I'm often asked, how'd you become the largest injury firm in the world? The answer is simple. We cared a lot. Over 30% of our new clients are referred by former clients. That says it all. Our clients have lawyers, case managers, and legal assistants always in the office. Every client has their attorney's cell phone number. Our results in client satisfaction. That's how we became the largest injury firm in the world. Injured? Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
We all have someone we love, like the favorite lyric in our favorite song. You can't imagine life without them. Cancer screening tests can help keep the person you love around longer by detecting changes before cancer develops, or catch it early when it may be easier to treat. And many tests are available for free or are covered by insurance. It's time to sound like a broken record. Tell all your friends and family, I love you. Get screened. Visit cancer.org/getscreened to learn more.
Overcoming drug addiction is difficult. The road to recovery is different for everyone. Find the path to recovery that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC. And Allison knows this, and producer Lou. Oh, by the way, producer Lou for the show. Congratulations. The dude just got engaged. Excellent stuff there. As both of my producers know, I hate Lincoln Day dinners, and I hate a lot of like really phony stuff in politics. Not the phony stuff. Like, obviously I hate the, you promise one thing in the campaign, you do something different while you're in office. Sure. I hate most of all the I'm just like you people thing. I went to a campaign rally for Jim Banks, and Donald Trump Jr. was the speaker there. And something that I really liked during his shtick while he was up on stage was how he said, look, I'm the son of a billionaire. You all know it. He said, so if I notice that the grocery store prices are bad, it must really be bad. And I like that because he wasn't trying to pass himself off as like one of the middle class individuals like you and I. And this is where I get really annoyed with Republicans because we just can't, and Democrats do this too. The state fair photos. Allison, are you out there? In the yes. Wild Blue, the state fair photos where they're like eating something and they're like, oh, just enjoying a corn dog, and they're like eating it sideways down near the butt of the corn dog at insert here county fair. And it's like, dude, no one is gonna vote for you because they're on Facebook and they're like, hey, I also eat corn dogs at the Jefferson County Fair.
So relatable.
Oh, so relatable. Like when Hillary Clinton posted the Vine of her going, I'm just chilling in Cedar Rapids. Like, it hurts. The one from this week, though, And I have this for you. This is a non-political point to make. Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota threw a fit on Twitter. Well, maybe that's unfair. She sent a tweet titled, "I'll be honest, I'm a little bummed that I didn't get to use my veto branding iron this legislative session." She has a metal veto branding iron. Now, you may be one of the weirdos out there who goes, "That's actually really cool." No, it's not. No, it's not. Some governor or some politician who does not know you, doesn't know anything about you, who is wielding a veto branding iron, that's all theater. It's silly. It's stupid. No one's impressed. No one is going to vote for Kristi Noem because she's holding a branding iron. And no one is going to vote for an Indiana Republican governor because they're hip with the times and saying all the cool kid lingo. And boy, my favorite food is sugar cream pie. Mine is the Indiana tenderloin. No one's impressed. Stop it. Just go to office and do what I'm paying you for. I'm not paying you to get veto branding irons and take social media pictures. And by the way, this is why I would not be like the popular congressional candidate. When Greg Pence announced that he wasn't running for re-election, I got a couple of messages that asked, come on, Tony, are you going to run for Greg Pence's seat in the congressional election? And I said, if I did, I don't know that you would really enjoy my time in office, because I would not post on social media every day like I do as a pundit whose job is to make fun of the politicians who are these very goobers we're talking about. I would put my nose to the grindstone and hopefully get some things passed. And I mean, I would argue on the floor. I wouldn't play nice. I mean, I would do my job. And I just don't understand why, if you're going to do this kind of stupid stuff, why it has to be so cringy. It's so out of touch. Do you remember that? I think it's from 30 Rock, and it's Steve Buscemi, and he's dressed up as a skateboarder, and he's like, "How do you do, fellow kids?" Walking through a high school as an old man.
Looking like a clear 40-year-old man, yeah.
Everyone always made fun of Mike Pence for being an old white guy who dressed like a conservative who had traditional values. You know what he never did? This cringy crap. He was just himself. And maybe you liked it, maybe you hated it. Trump's the same way, just in kind of a different variety. There's none of the weird, goofy, silly stupidness, like Kamala Harris singing "The Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round." Thanks for tuning in. This has been another fun episode. That Bill Whittle podcast is up. You should go listen to it. We'll be right back here tomorrow. Same nonsense that you love to make fun of. This has been the Tony Kinnacast here on 93 WIBC.
With the weather changing, March is a critical time to check your home